right, we will go ahead and call Committee of the Whole to order. And I'll first move to approve the minutes of the October 13th meeting without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Okay, so our main item on the docket tonight, welcome, is the communication from me about updating about the City Hall space concerns. And just to give us a little refresher on that, so this has been a sort of ongoing discussion. We know at the sort of around this time, December last year, the mayor and I did a communication about the space study and acknowledging the challenges of the space issues here at City Hall, particularly as it relates to the police department and particularly the female police locker rooms, but generally the police department. And then we've been through a few different explorations. Where we are now is, since we had the recommendation from the administration to purchase the Warren Road building, as we were considering that potential possibility, we also wanted to do all the due diligence on the various possible options, as well as the potential costs and benefits of doing that Warren Road purchase and rehabilitation. So since that time, Vice President Baker, Councilman Evans, and myself have formed a working group working with the planning department and the administration to go through some of the questions that council members had been asking in terms of what are the possible options to solve the space issues, how much would each option potentially cost, what are the operational and customer service pros and cons of each. So as we've worked through that, we sort of narrowed those down into essentially 3 options. Of course, there are many more options than that, but just to have a digestible conversation and kind of get our heads around this issue, we sort of centered around 3 specific options. So how could an addition be built onto the current City Hall of sufficient size to address the space issues, and how much would that cost? How much would it cost to fully gut and renovate the Warren Road building and retrofit the current City Hall into a justice center? And then some of the other questions, we also had the option of doing the small addition, which was originally presented as an option as well, that would just specifically address some of the police issues, but not a lot of the other issues. And then some of the other questions we had were, how do the City Hall improvements previously laid out in the 5-year capital plan, for example, the window replacements, fit into the overall budget and timing of the proposed project options, and what are the ongoing operational costs and the customer service and efficiency pros and cons of each. So since that time, we've been working with our consultants from Weber Murphy Fox. So we're joined by David Thal from Weber Murphy Fox tonight, as well as our PMC consultants. So we have Chris Panici, thank you, and Ken Kalinchuk. We're very familiar with Ken, of course, from PMC, here to kind of help us through some of those explorations. They've prepared a presentation to walk us through each of those. So before I jump over to them, Vice President Baker or Councilman Evans, do you have anything to add that I've left out there?
Thank you, President Keppel. And the only thing I'd add is that, you know, as we talked about earlier, when, you know, the shared priorities of space at City Hall, finding extra space for the police department to meet the modern 21st century policing. But these, I want to caution folks as we go through these, and I'm sure our consultants will help reiterate this point. This is not like, this is what a detailed cost would be. These are scale costs so that we understand kind of like orders of magnitude if we pick one route, what it likely might be, but there's not a lot of detail on the bone to then provide that estimate. So it's very conceptual. I'm sure they will say that, but I just want to share with my colleagues in the public that it is very conceptual.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. We're just trying to get to the point where we had sort of apples to apples comparisons of the 3 options, so all kind of at the same high level conceptual, and we'll probably say those words repeatedly tonight. So, okay, any other comments? No, from colleagues? All right, so I'll turn it over to Chris and David? You push the button, it should turn red, and then we should hear you.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect.
It's a faint red. So good evening, everyone. My name's Chris Panicki. I am with PMC. I just wanted to do a quick introduction and then kind of give a little background on myself. I've been with PMC about almost a year and a half now, a little more. Prior to that, I ran the capital work at Case Western Reserve University for about 10 years. So I have a lot of capital work experience from brand new buildings to a lot of existing buildings on campus. And then prior to that, I was in practice for 20. So worked on a lot of higher education as well as K-12 and government work. So first thing we want to do is go through the plans. And David's going to take us through those tonight. Then we're going to talk a little bit about these conceptual project estimates and how we develop them. Ken's going to work us through some of the finance, the key tax pieces, and then we're going to wrap it all up. So that's kind of our agenda tonight. And with that, David.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight. Should we switch to the next slide? Okay, great. So I'm going to, as Chris mentioned, just do an overview of the three options that are being presented today. And option one is where we started was we looked at every department in the building. In fact, it was called a space utilization study. We walked all 70,000 square feet of the city, documented it to then be able to provide digital plans to them work from. Worked with all the department heads to look at the needs, the desires, and to see where we might be able to be more effective within the space of the building. And so that's where this came about. And while it has all the departments in their associated color blocking forms, there are some limitations in terms of growth. We did add a very small addition that would be to the east, and that's on the rear side there that you see that little rectangle that comes out. It basically fills what's existing parking along the east side there. And that then helped with some of the police department's locker room reconfigurations and allowing for a little bit more expansive on the one of the floors for more office space, and then possible more meeting room space up here. And that's where we landed here. We were asked to look at another scheme, which if we go to the next slide, this option begins to look at a much larger addition, an addition that would bring the police department to a square footage that made sense for expansion and growth. And I believe there's one other slide for option. There we go. And then all the other departments. This plan is showing the second floor where planning and development and building and housing, which are down on the lower level, would come up to the second floor, and then the police would then grow into the addition on the other two floors. So this was option two with the large addition that this is towards the east, but it's on the front of the building, and it's not quite a zero lot line. It pretty much terminated just before the tree line. This option three, to do what was mentioned in apples to apples comparison, was also to look at the departments that would be relocated as proposed to going to the Warren Road building. Doing a test, a blocking diagram similar to some of the other schemes here in this building. And this is just, again, high level. The departments might go here, they might be in other areas, but really it was about looking at the floor plates, what exists, what might work within the existing building renovation, and where a possible new addition might need to be added in order to really fit all the program and the modern needs of accessibility. So elevator, stair, and some other programs. And I believe the next slide, this shows the areas that are not in color are the areas of the departments that are proposed to move to Warren Road. And then these are the areas in which the police department would grow into. And in one of our former studies where we showed how the police department would grow into this was one of the schemes. It's not this, but it basically takes the area that aren't not colored and they become blue, pretty much.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
So what you're seeing in front of you are 3 conceptual project estimates. So it's a project estimate includes construction cost as well as all the soft costs. So anything that would involve in that project, soup to nuts. But they are very high level. This is parametric at best, so it could swing 10 to 15% depending on scope as well as market conditions. So we're really high level. We're going to keep saying that tonight so people are, reiterating that. So the first, and they're also based on a mixture of 3 things. Weber Murphy Fox, and they have in-house construction management group, so they provided the construction cost estimate. Then we layered in, PMC, we layered in soft cost pieces, and then there's this third bucket, including city projects that were ongoing or ones that were planned. So that's what you're going to see here. And I'll go through the first option 1, and then you'll see how it works with option 2 and 3. So option 1, renovating City Hall with a small annex addition, or small addition and an annex renovation. About $12.8 million for hard construction costs. A&E services, if they're around 10%, would be about $1.2 million. FF&E,
Could you describe what A&E services mean for everyone?
Sure. Oh, sorry. Yes.
The public.
Thanks.
Yeah,
You're
no.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councilman. Thank you. So A&E, architectural and engineering services. For those are so anything that would be required to facilitate the design for the building. So all your mechanical, your electrical, your plumbing, your technology. Those are encompasses structure. So that's what David works on. So that's what A&E services are. So FF&E is your furniture, fixtures, and your equipment. If you were to take the building, turn it up, shake it down, everything that falls out of it, that's a good way to say what FF&E is. Depending if you get new furniture, use some of the existing, that number could change a bit, but it was estimated at $1.4 million by your team. And then the next one is really, it's one of those ones that people don't want to admit it's needed, is a owner construction contingency. And what are these for? These are for the unknowns. Sometimes there's the known unknowns, but these are truly the unknowns. The stuff behind the walls you can't see, the stuff that the contractor's not going to be responsible for that hits projects. And having worked on so many projects on old buildings, you're always going to find something. So really, you want to preserve money in your budget for when those things happen. And of course, there's always those things you forget about as you're going through the course of design. You might find out after when you're construction, I really like to do this, and we're in here right now, or someone changes in administration, things that's always happened. It always happens, it comes up. So that's what the owner's contingency is for. There are other contingencies that are baked into the construction cost. There's design and bidding contingencies. There's escalation contingencies. Those are all lumped up right now in the $12.8 million, which David's firm has accounted for. Again, very high level. And then the next item would be additional soft costs, things that, again, people don't think about. Moving, utilities, legal work, technology. You can see there's a lot of robust technology in here. To have this stuff either transferred or bought new would be a lot of money. Testing. You have to test if it's a new building. You're testing all your structure. You're testing your foundations. Insurance. Are you going to carry your own insurance builder's risk, or are you going to put it on the contractor? All those things you have to think through. That could be a lot of money. Sometimes you'll have, in this case, you're a city group. Maybe you'll have to pay for permits. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll, depending on how that works. You want to charge yourself? I've seen cities do that. So, I mean, that's all part of the project cost, right? Then you get down to there's 3 we identified that we know about. There's probably a 4th one that I'm not sure the boilers where that sits, but one is the elevator project. That was estimated at $1 million. The wayfinding project was $170,000, and then the window replacement, which we bumped up a little bit. It was a little less. It was less than. It was like 2.5, I think. So we put it at 2.7 million because I think it was a few years ago. So your window replacement for the whole facility. I mean, these are original windows. So we came up with a grand total for this option 1 at $21.4 million, and that does not include renovation to the existing jail or support spaces. That wasn't part of this. So I just want to make sure that that's known when you're putting here. That's still out there. That hasn't was not put in this cost figure. Any questions on one, or you want me to go through all 3 of them, and then are there any questions?
I just had a question on
Sure.
the The owner's contingency, did you use is it a similar percentage for each
Yeah,
of these? How does that
That's a
figure
great
out?
question. And in a renovation of this nature, old buildings, we like to carry at least 10%. It could even get greater. It may sound like it's inverse, but the less you're doing, the more unknown you're getting into. So if I were taking a building down and I would do a gut renovation, then it ground the structure, you still would need some, but it's like you can probably back that down a little bit because you're removing all your unknowns, depending on at what point in time you put that into the, let's say, you'd have to gut it before you entered the contract, but 10% is usually what we hold for these type of things. Again, I don't want to get into in-depth on it, but you could definitely spend it. Dave, sorry.
Councilmember Strebing.
Thank you. I'm a little confused at the numbers here because it's not quite matching up. So I see the construction cost, and that's 12.8. The A&E service is 1.2. The FFE is 1.4. The owner contingency, and then it goes on with that next phrase in parentheses. Is that the 1.2? And then the other soft cost, or is that all part of one thing there? And then does the legal technology testing match up with 642? Can you explain which?
These are all separate numbers. I think the math would be correct. Oh, you're not seeing the line. There should be a line between owner's contingency and other soft cost.
Okay, so other soft cost is where that 642
Right.
is. Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Other soft costs, moving utilities, legal technology, testing, insurance, AV, and art. End of parenthesis, maybe there should be to explain that
correct.
phrase.
Correct.
Thank you. So then that is the 642.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Other council members, questions before we go on? Members of the administration? No? Okay. Take it away.
Okay, so option number 2 is a renovation of City Hall with a larger addition. So you're renovating 53.9 thousand gross square feet with light to moderate renovation. And I think, as David alluded to, that would be you're not completely gutting it. You're doing finishes in certain areas, maybe ceilings, maybe lighting. Some rooms might get just paint. That, when they were figuring it out, it was kind of a blend. A blend. So this is, we're starting in that middle point. And so the cost for that was $20.5 million to do that work, the renovation, plus also renovating the annex. A&E services, again, 10% of that work. FF&E, $1.4 million. We just carried the number. Again, this is high level. You could debate on whether or not it should be a little higher because it's a little greater space, but we just carried the number. The owner's contingency, again, 10%, so that would be $2 million. Soft costs would be a little larger because it's a bigger space. So even though it's, well, actually, it's so that's 1 million. And then the 3 projects, the elevator, the wayfinding, and the window. The one project, like I said, I mentioned before, that's not in here are the boilers. When I walk through the building, I know you're doing the boiler project, but I don't know what that's worth and when that's going to be done. That might be done even before. I don't know what the timeline of that is. Does anybody know? No idea. Okay. You've got a great old boiler. Those things are workhorses. It's the original one, but they're not efficient, and it's beyond its useful life. But it definitely, by the way, this building is extremely well maintained. So hats off to the person who does it, just walking around in it. Just did a great job. I've walked a lot of buildings, and this one is really well maintained. So wanted to state that.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you for the presentation, and just a quick terminology clarification. So at the top of option 2, first of all, GSF, what's the G part? Gross?
Gross.
Gross square feet?
Sure.
How's that different than square feet? It's just same deal?
Gross. Okay, net and gross. Gross is if you were to draw a line throughout the whole building, around the whole building, it was because we didn't have all the specific numbers.
Okay.
And net would be net spaces less the walls. So
Okay,
depending
right.
if you're,
So this is rough cut and not walking around with
you
a
got it.
measuring tape. Secondly, light to moderate means what?
A blend. So because it's very high level, when talking to David, we were going through the various spaces. I go, what about this one? He's like, well, that one probably be a little bit more because we're removing walls. So then now you're removing walls, so now you're touching ceilings, you're touching all the floors, you're basically, that one's a little heavier. This room, this one room might be just used as is, so it might be just paint and carpet. I'll let Dave.
Yeah, so there are areas that we had investigated that obviously would need maybe more minor renovation, maybe moderate and more major. Okay. More major, I would say, in some of the police area where the locker rooms and showers, you have plumbing fixtures, you have mechanical. You have a lot of it that would be more major. In the, let's say, the lower level where housing and planning and development are, maybe it's okay to kind of slip in and grow into it as is. Maybe refresh the lighting, maybe refresh the finishes, but in terms of there's a balance of private offices and open space, and maybe that would be perfect for some of the expansion that would be needed. That would be more minor. So, when we were looking at these high-level numbers, we were looking at about $100 a square foot for more minor, $150 for moderate, and $200 for major.
Okay, that's helpful. So you're classing, you're establishing broad buckets and making broad estimates, and then it seems the cost driver is the total square foot, gross square footage in each, between at least 1 and 2, option 1 and 2, right? That's the driver here. Is
right, and with 2, there's a larger new addition. So it's an addition that is going to, part of it's underground. There's some earthwork that needs to be moved. So it's all of that was figured in.
Well, and if I'm following correctly, there should be little to no owner's contingency for the new, unless we think of the Lakewood Hospital site where we did find underground soil issues.
You never, because it's it's new and you're digging.
So I'll hold my fire on that one. Okay, thank you. Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right, I'll continue then. So then option 3 is the largest of the 3 options at 33,000 square foot Warren Road site, the existing Board of Education building, or the old Board of Education building, renovating that building. So what we thought in that building, it's a complete gut renovation. It's a 100-year-old structure. There's a lot of work to be done on it. We're looking at $17.5 million in construction costs. The property costs, which we did put in here, were less the sale of the annex building, so it was a guesstimate. We understood it was about 1.5 to purchase, and maybe you get $500,000 to sell the annex. Those numbers could be off, but we put a placeholder in there so people understand that it's part of the equation. A&E services, again at 10%, $1.7 million. FF&E backed that down a little bit at $1.2 million because we still have the City Hall renovation below, as you'll see. And then owner's contingency, still keeping it high even though they're doing a gut renovation for several reasons. We still don't know what's going on with the foundation. There's water leaking in the building. Once we take all the stuff, take the plaster and drywall off, we want to see what the structure looks like. Is there water mitigated through there? Is there structure we have to replace? There's just a lot of unknowns in a 100-year-old building. So we'd like to keep that contingency high for that reason. And then soft cost, having the same soft cost applied in this project as well, for a total of $24.1 million for the Warren Road. And moving to City Hall, so in this case, City Hall would not get an addition. Use the building as is, as the square footage to 53.9 thousand gross square feet. Renovating it on a lighter scale because we're not going to be doing as much. We're not having the addition, so that was around $8.1 million. A&E services for that portion of work would be about $800,000. FF&E we still kept high because we didn't know if you'd still be buying all new furniture, because this is one of those ones there's equity. If you renovate a portion of it and only, no, not everybody gets new furniture, how would you want to approach it? Again, that can go up and down. This is parametric, so we're just shooting in the dark here. You're trying to hit it in the middle, and It could be lower or it could be higher by 10%. And then owner's contingency at around 800,000. And then soft cost, 400,000. And then the three respective projects that we've talked about before, with a total of 15.5 million, taking both of those projects into consideration, adding them up at 39.7 million. So I went through that quickly. Are there any questions on option 3, well, how we derive the numbers?
Councilmember Strebe.
Thank you. I know you were talking about owner contingency here, and I'm just curious about the comparisons with options 2 and 3 and why there's such a difference there. It would seem like if you're doing light to moderate building renovations in both of these places, that what you would discover in one situation would be the same thing that you would discover in the other situation.
So you're saying option 2, if I'm reading you correctly, option 2, and the second part of option 3 in comparison?
Yes.
Or the aggregate of 3?
The second part of 3. Thank you.
Right, so it's a difference of 1 million versus 816.
Well, I think it's 2, right, in option number 2.
I'm sorry, 2. Right,
2 million
because it's
here,
right.
and then half of that for...
Because we did and that's a great question. So that was 10%. Maybe actually that should be a little higher on option 3.
Or number 2 should be lower.
Maybe.
Option 2, maybe.
Possibly.
I'm not sure how you came up to your number. I'm just...
10%.
Like that's...
10% of the construction
Okay,
cost.
that's quite a
It's-
difference.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And again, it was, option 2 was a little more aggressive because you would be moving more walls. Option 3, you have a lot of room, so the thought was they would be utilizing the rooms as is. Probably not the most efficient, but you can keep the walls in place. So you're not opening the walls, you're not experiencing a lot of unknowns. So it's a guesstimate at this point because you're at this parametric level.
Thank you.
Councilman Bullock.
To follow on with Councilman Strebe, I think also the difference between option 2 and 3 is that option 2 proposes a new addition of square footage and annex renovation, and I think option 3 does not do either of those things.
That's correct.
So more is going on for option 2 that's driving the present City Hall cost
Oh, I see.
estimates higher.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If I may add to that briefly, the total contingency for option 3 is around 2.5 million. Around 2.5 million.
If you add them both.
If you add,
I see. Yep. If you add
so that's probably the better comparison between option 2 and option 3 is the
Thank you very
2.5 to
much.
2.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? Where we are so far? Director Byington.
Thank you, President Keppel. Just a couple quick questions as I'm trying to take notes on everything here. I was wondering what number per square foot was used for new construction to start with.
For option 1.
Well, if they're different throughout, I assumed maybe it was the same number used for new construction on all 3, but if they're different, I think the front addition would be more expensive because of the amount of soil that would need to be removed. But do you have any of those numbers? So maybe I'll just say my questions and then you can look into it. So that was one. And then the second was, what did you use for the, so there was low, mod, high, 100, 150, 200. So looking for the new construction. And then what number did you use for square foot for the renovation of Warren Road? And then the last question was comparing the raw construction numbers that were originally provided from your firm on these options. The raw construction number on these are higher. So I wondered if there was a reason that you could explain that it's higher.
So yes, I can speak to where we came up with the existing building renovation for Warren Road and how that's different from this building. Was that one of the questions? No.
No, I'm sorry, that wasn't one of the questions.
Okay.
So the first one was just so Warren Road, what what number did you use for renovation per square foot for Warren Road? And then second was, what number did you use for new construction for the additions on City Hall, existing City Hall? And then third, comparing the estimates from your firm for these options, the hard costs, the hard construction costs were less on the first estimates that you provided than this, so I wondered what the difference was, why they're higher now. And that's just for the hard cost. I understand that you included in this one the elevator project. Well, the elevator wasn't, but the windows weren't in, so that increased the total cost. But I'm just looking at that base construction cost and why that's higher now.
Okay, so I can speak to option 1. The addition, we were looking at around $440 a square foot, $437.67. Renovations were for City Hall were at around that $150, which is what we thought would be of that blended cost between minor, moderate, and major, $150. And the annex ended up being around $167, so still within that range. So that was option 1. Option 2, this is the new front addition. We had that at around 500 square foot, $495. And the same numbers for the renovation, that blended rate of around 150 square foot. So that was option 1 and option 2. The new construction for 3 was rated around 500. And that's where we proposed, and again, that was our look at the blocking diagram and felt that you needed a small new addition, even on the Warren Road, to have the lobby, the security, elevator, new fire stair. And so that was around that 500 square foot. So those are the new renovation costs, the new building renovation costs, and then the building renovation costs for options 1 and 2. For option 3, the Warren Road, we had that, which I don't think that was one of your questions. That was at that more major renovation cost, and we had that as a range. But
The last one of your questions I think that you hit is option 2, the construction cost at $20.5 million. It's $17 million for hire plus the contingencies and escalation that we have built in their number, which comes up to $20,500,000. So it's 17,084,025 plus 3,416,805. That's how we developed the $20 million.
so we,
Thank you. Through President
Go
Keppel,
ahead.
maybe we could just sit down, and this is not for tonight.
Yeah, we can go through it.
But I still have just a couple of questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Not tonight on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, not to keep driving home the high-level conceptual nature of these numbers, but as we're trying to imagine an addition that's a blank box and placing things wherever, but just trying to get a sense of the scale of each of these projects and what we might be looking at.
Yeah. And I think maybe you did mention even before, I'm not going to say it. We tried to, one of the goals of this exercise was to make an equal look at all 3 options. So one wasn't weighted heavier than the other or had more investigated than the other, because then it's not a fair comparison. I think one of the charges you gave us is, if we really want to understand these things, the 3 apples here, what we have to deal with, even though they are different in cost. So one's more expensive, one's an apple, Honeycrisp, and the other one's whatever, Fuji. But using those food analogies, but that's what the goal of this was. So I just want to make sure that people understand it was kind of an even approach to all of them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, with the option 3 part of the construction cost was also the need for the additional driveway and those kinds of things, or is that part of that per square foot cost
You mean as far as Warren goes?
as far as Warren Road? Yes.
Yeah, we took, when we sat down and looked at it, it wasn't just the building, it was site development cost, how are we going to have a new approach to City Hall, what we're going to do with parking, everything from mechanicals, where the mechanicals would probably go, is there going to be initial structure needed for that, are you going to go up top, on the side, is there going to be a generator, where would that be located? You start to get in, just start thinking conceptually how all these costs can really add up. Because right now you have a generator for this building that does everything but the elevators and the chillers. But it handles all the rest. Are you going to do that same thing there, or do you want to have a full generation? That's just a question on the road. That's how prices can go up and down, right? It's you keep asking questions and you keep saying, what do you want to design? How do you want to design it?
Bullock.
A couple more clarifying questions. So the needs that you just named, that the chair just named, they're found where? Where do you group the driveway and paving and parking costs? In which category?
So in our budget, we included, we had identified, or it was identified together, that there needed to be a new drive and parking from Warren Road, and that got included in the new dollar.
So that's just in construction. That's part of construction.
Yes.
Sorry,
As
not the
opposed to
new, but
A&E or
in
something
the,
else.
Right.
as part of, sorry, not part of the new construction of the new addition, but as part of the, what we're calling the Warren Road existing building renovation.
Wonderful.
So within
And then,
that,
thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt.
course.
The methodology question, these are $25, presumably?
so we included through 2026.
Right.
We accounted for escalation through 2026.
All right, so kind of cost of living increase, equivalency in expenses.
Increase.
You calculate your best guess at inflation and bake that into these numbers through
It's
final quarter.
based on 5%.
5%. So
Okay.
historically, before we had this big last few years when the market went crazy, you could have always assumed 4%. Some years it was 2, some years it was 3. But over the time, historically, you could say 4%. Now, the last few years, when we had crazy 8 or 9%, it changed the whole game. It changed the whole model. We're seeing construction prices still in that 4 or 5 for next quarter. They're still going up. Steel's going up. Copper's going up. Aluminum's following that parity because they figure if copper goes higher, so can aluminum. So that changes all your wiring. You want to go from copper to aluminum. All those things add. And then, of course, the tariff world. That's another whole
Now,
piece.
any option, 1, 2, or 3, is not expected to be permitted, contracted, developed, installed, commenced, and then we're not cutting the ribbon by 12 months from now on any of these options, right? So how does any of us estimate, is this a 2-year project, a 3-year project? How do you control for that? Or is that, am I stealing the show?
We'll hit the summation slide, and it's our best guess.
Very good questions,
It's a great
and
question.
we're going to get into them.
It's an aggressive best guess. That's our last slide. So, yeah, any more questions on these, or we can? Ken, I think you're on the next slide.
And next slide, please. Council, good to see you. Thanks for having us tonight. In the grand magnitude of the project scenarios, the economic impacts estimated are not very large, but I'll talk you through 2 scenarios where the Warren Road building remains a private use and happens to get developed as a private end use. Could be residential, could be commercial, could be mixed use. Will probably require incentives. And I was informed tonight that there may be an incentive request pending for that property, or the legislation was approved, so these numbers need to be updated. So I'll talk about the updated numbers, and we'll send them to you after the meeting. But from an income tax standpoint, that doesn't change based on the property taxes. So for the Warren Road property, made some assumptions on commercial and residential use and blended the 2 scenarios to make things as equal as possible. The 1-year income tax estimate would be around $21,000 per year. Multiply that by 30, that's $640,000 over a 30-year period. For the annex building, it's much smaller. It's a smaller site, smaller building. doesn't assume, a high-rise going in. So the average impact on income taxes, we have at $5,500 a year and $166,000 over 30 years. The property taxes is where things have changed tonight. The annex building, we estimate around $3,000 in city taxes per year if that's a private use. At $96,000 over 30 years in new taxes. For the schools, $10,000 per year and $300,000 over 30 years. Now, it could be a project that gets abated potentially, so that could affect things too. On the Board of Education building on Warren Road, given the tax incentives that were passed, there would be no new city taxes over the 30 years because there's a tax abatement for 15 years and a non-school TIF for the last 15 years of that 30-year period. For the school taxes, take that 1.4 million divided in half. So that would be $700,000 over 30 years as the school's taxes. So you're looking at a swing on the income tax front of $500,000 more per year from the Warren site being redeveloped as a private use. On the property tax side, it's double the impacts for the schools, but within $100,000 either way for city taxes. Again, these are small impacts compared to the overall. Maybe if Director Byington has any questions or comments to add. Okay. Happy to answer your questions. Or anyone else in the administration.
Anyone else? No?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll send us an updated
Yes.
slide of this? Thank you.
Okay, so the last slide is really a summary, and then there's his cash flows, which you were talking about before. So again, it's to summarize the first option, estimated project cost at $21.4 million, 62,000 plus gross square feet of renovated and new space, no change to tax revenue. The program fits, but there's no room for growth. I think it's a fair statement. City functions stay in one location, and there's no renovation of to the existing jail or support spaces. Option 2, you're at $30,984,985, 74,872 gross square feet of renovated and new space, no change to tax revenue. Program fits with room for growth. City functions stay in one location. And again, no renovation to the existing jail and support spaces. Option 3 is at $39.7 million, 90,459 gross square feet of renovated and new space. Tax revenue, as Ken mentioned, there are some changes, so these numbers might have to get tweaked a bit, but it was based on the earlier projections and his spreadsheet. There would be a 15,800 loss every year of average income tax because it would now be a city-owned property, and the property tax would be less 60,000. That's with the assumption that the annex would be sold.
And occupied and redeveloped.
Yeah.
And occupied and redeveloped.
Yeah. All those assumptions. The program fits with plenty of room for growth. City functions are in 2 locations, and again, no renovation to the existing jail and support spaces. From a cash flow perspective, now this is aggressive, and we don't know what the delivery method is and how you're going to do it. There's different ways you're going to do it. I know one thought was going design build with the criteria architect, but really we think, and maybe it shouldn't be fiscal year, it should be a calendar year. Apologies on that. That next year, 26, would be spent in design. And then at tail end, you might be able to pull it off if you're aggressive with design and you know what you want. You can bid by the end of the year and be ready for construction in year 27. So the first one is probably a 2-year project plus a little bit. The second one is definitely a 3-year project. And the third one is definitely, it's probably 4 years in duration. So actually the second one's probably 4 years, I'm sorry, because you have your design. So it's really a 4-year project, the second one, and a 4-year project on the third one as well. But you're really spending a lot more money on the last end because you're renovating that last building after you renovate the property off Warren Road. You want to renovate that first, move everybody in, and then renovate the other space. At least that would be the logical way to do it, but you can do it otherwise too. And these are high level, but it just kind of gives you a sense of what your cash flows would be.
Thank you. I'm going to go Councilman Hamilton Steiner first.
Thank you, President Keppel. Okay, so just to clarify the projected cash flow in the planning. So either way, either option 1, 2, or 3, that first year would be like the planning, the bidding, all of that stuff, right?
Correct.
So essentially, okay, so that's like essentially year 0. And then the subsequent years would be year 1, year 2, year 3. So when you're saying option 2 and 3 are going to be 3-year projects, that's what you mean. And option 1 would be 2 years.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then thank you for clarifying the fiscal year. We were just having a little discussion before that, how
Yeah.
confusing that is.
Yes,
'Cause our
it is.
fiscal
Sorry.
year goes January 1 to December 30th. So you could replace it with calendar year so it's clearer to people. But so, yeah.
Right,
So
that's what I asked-
essentially 26.
We'll
we're
make that
thinking-
change in the revised copy.
Yeah.
We'll start-
Yeah.
Just put year
so-
on it, just not, because, yeah.
Yep,
I
yep,
heard
yeah.
it was a yearly thing, but I should have put fiscal. I should have just put calendar year.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So we'd be looking at potentially either option if we were to move forward at some point next year, 1.2, 1.5, or 1.6 approximately coming out of next year's budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
High level, correct.
Other, Councilman Bullock, did you have something else?
Just more clarifying questions. So this is all very helpful. Back to the dollars question. So at the bottom of this slide, again, these are, shall we call them $26
Yes.
across the schedule just for uniformity. Okay, so we may find that it creeps up, but it'd be, yeah, all of them would be plus 5%-ish.
Correct.
For-
Yeah,
okay.
in design, you're probably the least risk as far as the cost escalation part goes, because you're not building something. It's professional fees, and those are about, that's probably in that range. You're not going to pay all the professional fees because they have construction administration. So if you take the A&E fees, the architectural engineering fees, 2/3 of it will be spent during the schematic design, design development, and contract documents in a traditional method, right?
Okay.
So that's about 2/3, a little more than 2/3 of their fee. The rest will be spent during
A
construction.
a portion, but
Yeah.
a sizable
But-
portion.
Yeah, but you'll have some other testing, you'll have other consultants upon that. So these are range costs.
Okay, that answered my question, thanks. And then the room for growth statements, actually, before I ask that, the annex is assumed to be sold and redeveloped in option 3 only and retained for ownership in option 1 and 2?
At this point, yes.
Okay, just to understand what we're looking at. And then the room for growth statement, those are insightful and important. So how do we know that option 1's no room for growth, but option 2 and 3 have room for growth? You're basing that on?
Yes, so at the end of option 1, we looked at it, and that's when it was discussed that the police and courts, mostly the police, they needed room to grow in order to get the correct, if you will, square foot per person and comparable to other municipalities. So that's where really the growth needed to happen the most. With regards to all the other departments, we were able to reconfigure and find spaces throughout the building, but there wasn't really a 3-year growth, a 5-year growth, in terms of.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
people
think
per
I follow, but
department.
let me make sure, though. So option 1 does propose a small addition. Would that small addition meet the needs of the police department?
It did not.
Okay.
And that's why it went on pause.
Understood.
And we
So
were-
option, the needs get more fully met in option 2 and 3. That's the point?
Correct.
Okay. And let's say we do one of those and we're done at the end of the project. Now, the police are in an expanded space. We have no more room for growth, right? Is that what we're saying? In other words, is behind your statement that there's room for growth that a future phase beyond the needs understood today about the need for police expansion, let's say we take care of those, are you saying we're baking in additional growth potential beyond that at the end of option 2 or 3, or that's not what the phrase means?
So we were able to work together with the police department to look at the programs that needed to happen, not only currently, but in the future.
Okay.
Within that expanded square footage for police within option 2, and then subsequently.
Okay, so that's
option
really,
3.
the room for growth bullets there are really a statement about the ability of those options to meet the expanded space needs for the police department. Is that right? I don't know, Chief, if you seem like you have something to interject.
Not being fully aware of option 2 at all, I think what Mr. Big Dave over there was trying to say was this option 3 that we had discussed, or that I was a part of, meets the needs now. Is it for future growth? I think it's just what we discussed was meeting the needs of today.
Okay. Is that what you mean by what you're presenting here?
So it's what may be a little bit confusing as well is that we did 5 options, and the options have been renumbered.
Okay.
So that's where they're not this 3, but
maybe what we can clarify here is when we talk about room for growth, are we talking about personnel growth or the usage of the space?
Personnel growth was my understanding. I mean, it was there's not any anticipation of growing more space after one of these.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess the question then is, if we're saying if option 1 would get us a female locker room, maybe some things, but it doesn't give us any wiggle room for the future in terms of police. But I guess what my question is, when we're talking about room for growth, is, well, I have 2. One is probably more of an architectural question. One is more of a staffing question. So the architectural question being, so option 1 was one specific solution of the small addition on the side. But of course, that's just one possible design solution that, just for the sake of getting our heads around this issue, that we have a small addition, a large addition, the 2-building solution. So the large addition accomplishes a great deal of square footage, and so if we're talking about personnel growth versus the use of space growth, I guess that's what I'm trying to get my head around too, is option 1 is a small addition, but could that be phased? So if you did option 1 and you solve the worst immediate stress, and then in a couple years you go up or you go out or something like that, so that's kind of, when we're talking about room for growth, we're talking about the project. I'm going to just state this, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, architects. So room for growth, meaning that if we get with any of these options, that there's in the structure as laid out at the high level conceptual, there is room for additional personnel or use of space that isn't currently contemplated. Does that make sense? So regardless of option that we're saying, if there's room for growth, it means that more people could be in this space than are squeezed in the design.
So in option 1, with that very small addition to the east, it really only solved a few things. It may have moved like training and the roll call room, and to be able to squeeze in where the locker room would go for men's, and then find a spot that would then take over lobby space for the women's locker room. So it really, it doesn't give the amount of square footage that the police department needs.
Sure. Yeah,
So
no,
that's why we
I
moved
get that.
on.
I'm just trying to define the term, because it's also, if it's a design term in terms of we're trying to accomplish X number of square feet per person, and that doesn't happen here, but it does happen in this one. And then the other question is, that's making assumptions too about the other use of City Hall. So if you bump out into planning, and then more planning department personnel work from home, and so then you have more flexibility in space, but that's not necessarily contemplated in that design. I'm just trying to get my head around it. But I'm going to go to Vice President Baker. He knows more about this and can probably say it more articulately than I can.
Well, yeah, I think at this stage, and I think what we're bumping up against is programming versus square foot, which is just different, right? And so we're not at that program stage, as I understand it. David maybe has a little bit more in-depth knowledge of that through his space study analysis that he and his firm did. But I think basically as a council and as a city and as a public, we think about it is no build is we have about 59 or 58,000 square feet of like municipal police office space. Option 1, you get 63. Option 2, you get 75. Option 3, you get 90. I think that's where the term room for growth comes from. You just have more square footage, right? How you program that is a totally different detailed design question that kind of meets with the program, right? And each job classification probably has like a standard square foot per employee, and yeah, I'm getting a little bit over my skis, but so I think in these particular slides, what room for growth means is you just have more square footage, right? Dedicated to that function, and you can figure out what to do with it. Because we don't have super detailed designs, we have conceptual counsel. What do we help work with the administration to say, this is what we're willing to fund, this is what we think is the right option. In the immediate time, we have a building that's for sale, and we need to start making decisions and thinking about it critically. So I think that's what this does. It doesn't, we're getting into programming, and that's very important, incredibly important, but we're just not there with this exercise. Is that correct?
I mean, that is correct. In order to, so what was conceptual estimate 3 of 5 is now what 3 is. Got it. And with the addition of renovating Warren Road. And that's the scheme where we did really look a little bit more at programming for the police department and for courts to know that they would have the appropriate amount of square foot needed per person for the functions. So there were certain concepts that had more detailed program than not. And I think what Chris's firm did is, they just, in looking at the amount of money, the amount of square footage, they just went by the totals and gave that square footage. With regards to who gets what, that's still,
It's still in flux.
Yeah, I mean, we took a stab at it.
Yeah, and that's part of, and I think one of the last things I'll mention is, the blob out front, right? It doesn't have to go out the way it did. It could more hug the building. It's just, I think, conceptually speaking, what would happen if we added, that amount of square footage to the building?
Right.
In my eyes, a fine employer in the city of Lakewood, but a school I don't like for sports reasons. St. Ed's kind of did the same thing. That came out on the front.
Correct. Yeah.
I think the other part of my question that is in regards to and I think that's a bigger picture question that isn't part of this exercise, but is important to think about. As Councilman Bullock points out to us, the city has had difficult financial times before, at one point losing staff in I think every department except police and fire. And so just thinking operationally, if there is a plan to expand staffing and what those long-range operation costs are, not just in police, but in any department, that goes to ongoing operational costs. And, how much space do we need for what size staff doing what? So those are kind of bigger picture questions that are outside of this exercise, but it is part of this whole thought process for me. Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Yeah, so going back to the whole room for growth, and maybe this is more directed at Chief Fisher, I think, I don't know if it would be the appropriate, I know you said it's, bigger picture personnel, but I think as far as the police, it would be nice to know what the future 5-year, 10-year plan for the police force is, as in terms of recruitment, who we're going to be bringing in, because then I think we can make a better decision. I think going back to your question about the physical sort of footprint of option 1 and the room for growth, if that were the option, would there be additional space to come back and add on? So like if we're able to fit the police needs right now, would we be able to come back and do additional work? Let's say in, 5 years, we boom again, right? So could we come back? So I guess those are my questions. And I don't know if Chief Fisher, you wanted to respond.
So your question of staffing level, I see us maintaining the same level of staff. It's obviously the demographics, the females, unfortunately right now in the male locker room or detective bureau locker room. Not only that, and not to get, again, this is high level conceptual, but I think Mr. Thal can also speak to is that the rooms right now as they're configured aren't adequate, like the detective bureau you've all walked through. I mean, the desks and stuff like that. So it's a hard question to answer. Staff-wise, I anticipate maintaining the staff, but obviously probably hiring more females still and specializing units and getting people the workspaces they need. They just don't have it right now.
Thank you. And I would be interested to hear, not necessarily tonight, this is, again, bigger conversation, but I know that there was a lot of conversation that happened with the different departments about the types of spaces that they need, because it is also in this concept of what type of space is needed for what type of work, and as well as the broader conversations too about in modern work area. We all lived through COVID here at City Hall, and do we need as much in-person workspace? And so like some of these conversations, I'd be interested to, if that information has been gathered by the administration, I'd be interested to have some of that. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks. Since maybe I partly opened the can of worms, but thank you to everybody for the discussion of room for growth. I got the answer. So I think what we're talking about is, does each alternative option, how well or not well, does it meet the known needs of today? And so I understand what we're talking about here. Now, in terms of future expansion, I guess I'll put my cards on the table and say, I think we should hold that for a future phase, not bake it into this, because there's costs. If we over-engineer or over-expand, we're for sure committing extra square footage costs. I think what's driving these different estimate costs are the total square footage, at least at this conceptual stage, right? And we probably can't afford that, to have an annex that's vacant for indeterminate future needs today, when we could reasonably do it and probably really do what the council president just said, redesign flexible use of people are in the office 3 days, they're working from home 2 days. We could probably find the new space within the existing footprint. I think that's the very approach by analogy that our new parking garage at the now Casto property is going to do. We're going to have more functional spaces than physical spaces because of the smart coordination of that. The other thing, just, I mean, historically, personnel drives operational costs. This is city budgeting, not this project budgeting, but every year we want to try to pay appropriate cost of living increases to the wages, and then, of course, benefits keep going up and up and up and up. And I was actually, we offer good benefits in this city, but that's not at a zero cost. So the kind of the rule of thumb or the policy is probably in our budget binder somewhere, right? In one of the policies and procedures is we are careful about adding new FTEs to the overall city personnel. I'm glad to hear the chief. I agree with your statement. Let's maintain. And the challenge with probably all public safety is there's a cycling of people retiring, people graduating up in seniority. Maybe they find a new position somewhere else, and we got to retrain them. And we don't want to be the developmental league for other departments because there's a cost to us in that in all kinds of ways. It's a compliment, but it's a compliment we don't really want. We want to retain our talent. So just maintaining a skilled, quality workforce with the 99 sworn officers, and then there's another 15, 20 leadership and administrative support in the police department is a lot. probably Director Byington's department, you guys are doing 250% of the work for each FTE you have. You know, I mean, there's an argument to be made that some departments do need more headcount, but I think it's a good policy in general for us to do that cautiously and a little bit at a time rather than say, hey, we really know today that we got to increase our personnel. And the last little tidbit is I think traditionally what we tried to do was use Six Sigma and other very business wonky improvements to improve our throughput. It wasn't that long ago that we were using triplicate carbons for, you know, building permits and so forth. That well, we moved to iPads and so on and so forth. So we're doing better and better, but I'm sure there's more productivity improvements that we can keep achieving so that our head count doesn't go up, but we're still doing a good job for the public and our customer service. So all of that aside, that's the programming thing, but that rushes up against the architecture and square footage questions. Thanks.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you. And I kind of, as I see these, and by the way, you know, President Keppel, Councilman Evans, and myself worked with Chris and David and Ken on this, and you know, this was coalescing last week, so this is all new data for us too. But as I think about it laid out this way, it's almost like us as a city and a public have, you know, this is a continuum. And what I mean here is that, what do you want to do? Right? How much square footage do you want? And do you want it to be renovated space, existing space? Do you want to have it in 2 different sites? Does just a center model? So you can go all the way from on the left, even further than option 1, to just renovate existing space, make it work, right? That's technically an option. All the way to option 3, which is 90,000 square feet. But really, within option 1 and 2, that's where the float is, right? Like the addition could be 20,000 square feet. It could be 10,000, right? So and that's where I think we need to figure out what we need, or is, you know, the Warren Road building the right route? And so I think those are the things where, now that we're seeing this really laid out, those are the decisions we have to make, and hopefully relatively soon.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's part of why normally at this point in the year when we're getting the budget ordinances presented at the full council meeting tonight, we would begin with budget hearings, but we were squeezing this in because it is very important. We all, this body, the administration, we've all recognized we need to address particularly the police space issues. So it's a priority, I think, for everyone. I don't think that's a wild thing to say, that we all want to make sure we address that. We want to make sure that we address it as we're going into budget season, has huge ramifications for the capital budget, whichever solution. We also want to be respectful of the current owner of the Warren Road building and make sure we get them a decision in a relatively timely manner. So hence why we have been working as diligently as possible, as expeditiously as possible, to get this high-level conceptual apples to apples pulled together as quickly as we could to have this conversation tonight. Other questions from council members? Any questions or comments from the administration? Director Mahoney.
I know there was at one point some analysis of how much more square footage the police department does need. Do you remember what that number was?
I don't know exactly what that number is, but I have it here and I can get that to you.
Okay, and then my other question is, option 2, there's no chance to move the annex over to City Hall in that option. So it does not provide enough room to move the annex operations over to City Hall.
As the option 2 stands right now, it still needed the function of having the annex, but you know, just like options do and discussions provoke ideas, it could be something depending on the you know, the direction, whether they could fit or not. But right now, it was too much of a square footage to be able to move into City Hall, knowing that there were all these other departments that needed to be worked out and to fit.
So it almost seems to suggest that the police needed at least 16,000 square feet then.
Yeah, I can look at the numbers. I
yeah.
think in total, I had some total square footages of what the ideal square footage would be, but that's about it. I think it may have been around that a little bit more in total.
Okay, thanks.
Assistant Director Saul?
Yeah, I had just a quick question. Do either option 1 or 2 include any additional space for the traditional administrative staff or the court? Or is that only contemplating expansion to accommodate the police department and what they currently need or might need in the future?
So option 1 that was done a couple of years ago, it really looked at every single department and had involved interviews with police, courts, finance, law, every department, and we looked at what the needs were, spaces, and so really 1 was sort of looking at where there are spaces within this building that weren't being used as efficiently, and so really it involved every and so we took that same idea into option 2 to be able to get the square footage needs that we found needed to happen for the police department. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
I think one of those things too is, and it's a little hard to see in this, but it is, we do have the renderings from Weber Murphy Fox are in that shared folder, which should have access to where you can blow them up more easily to see the detail. But one of those, I think it should be in there, has the sort of hatch marks that show where current space on option 2, where it says which things are assigned and which are sort of unassigned and existing departments and those sorts of things. So with the idea of that isn't necessarily all police space, or things could be reconfigured, and again, to say high level conceptual again, but also that just for the purposes of trying to get our heads around this, we're talking about these sort of 3 options, but there are more than 3 options that exist in the world. Vice President Baker.
Yeah, and to Director Mahoney's point, I mean, you'd run the numbers. if the annex is 4,000 square feet right now, and you need 4,000 square feet here, you just take 4,000 square feet times $500 a square foot for a new building, and that would be the additional 4,000 square feet. So I think I don't want to oversimplify what David and Chris would do, but that's a rough, so it's in the continuum, right? It's just what we want to do.
Evans.
Yeah, I would just say quickly too, just to, again, we're looking at that option 2, the addition is just kind of a nebulous blob right now. And so when you're working from something that's pretty much a blank box, you have a lot more efficiency in design and the way things are laid out and how to get people in there that you do if you're working with an existing building where there are constraints you're going to run up against. So, I mean, I certainly think there's going to be ways you're going to find efficiencies in that addition to be able to build there in a better, smarter way than we're looking at some of the renovation scenarios.
All right. Other questions or comments? Anyone want to have public comment on this topic? No? Okay. Last chance for questions or comments on this topic, because we do have another item on our agenda that I will move to if we do not have further ones at this time. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Gentlemen, if you want to go on with your evening, you're welcome to do so.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much. All right. So we do have another item on the agenda for Committee of the Whole, which is our appointment to the Tree Education and Advisory Board Task Force, and I'm looking at Councilmember Evans, who did some work on our behalf on this topic. Yeah. Executive session. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. Did we notice that? Did we notice executive session, Maureen? We did? Okay. So, we did, okay. All right, so I will make a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of considering a city, what is the language of that? Assistant Director Swallow. The appointment of a public official. Thank you very much. So that is my motion to enter executive session for that purpose. All right, thank you. And we do need a roll call. Yes. All right. Evans. Marks. Keppel, yes. Baker.
Yes.
Bullock. Yes. Streebig.
Yes.
Hamilton Steiner.
Yes.
All right, and I will include in that council staff and any relevant members of the administration.
You didn't invite me over for potatoes. They don't like you. I don't know what to say. I take offense to that. They would have me potatoes all the time. All the time.
You and Shaker. I gotta
I was
tell you.
actually going to call you. What was going on at Valley when I wrote back here?
Done it before.
Claudia?
Popped up on Sudafed?
Something like that.
You can join me and Ryan in the same boat.
What?
We're in the same boat. I'm
Well,
doing used to that.
no, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was a rough Sunday. Not,
No, I don't think anybody does.
yeah.
Dude, you're out of control right now.
Sorry, Mom, good luck.
So we'll exited executive session. Committee of the whole. And I will make a motion to enter the name Katie Kelleher into Resolution 2025-41.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'd like to thank Councilmember Evans for working to interview the candidates. And we have incredible candidates, so really impressive, as always, the pool of candidates we have here in Lakewood. All right, on the motion to enter the name, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll move to refer that resolution as amended favorably back to full council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. We'll take just with no further business, without objection, Committee of the Whole is adjourned. We'll take just a couple minutes to reset.
Took a lot to make it here. Not yet. He sent an email to Leah and I to expect a call from her. Yeah. Unless she called the office, but usually I still see that, and I didn't see anything from her. I think he might have popped up and saw Leah. He still had more. Okay.
this is like the old format of. That's just what we're using.
I wasn't sure.
Angie, when I get home tonight, I'll ask John again. But basically, he said he forwarded your info to the sales rep so that they can call you. Yeah. I don't expect them to move fast, but yeah, John will probably have to remind them.
You're in a table full of.
Mine's not a head cold. No, I went like Coach Lee in volleyball Sunday morning, and like we went to breakfast for my father-in-law's birthday, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I was like, oh my god, I can't. I mean, I didn't even eat breakfast, so I don't know.
I
if it was
did, but I
don't know.
asked Dr. Devlin, he was like, okay, push that.
Guys, I posted today is not good.
That's what I thought. But I asked her, she should get back to me.
So then you know, just like store.
Yeah, back here next.
Well, so I don't want to keep copying
Yeah.
those copies.
Mila graciously gave me this nice folder sheet. I had a feeling.
I'm doing it. I've done it.
I feel this is like that time of year with
the other day.
kids.
It's not scary.
She's like trying to cough in her.
Well, I mean, I guess
I'm
very
definitely
personal.
Oh yeah.
I hope it's
10 years ago. I was
Since
like,
I
no,
wasn't
I'm
sure
good, I'm
too.
good.
John slept in the other room last night.
no, it's
I don't think it was
they're the same thing.
the same something.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't sitting right.
All right, we will call to order the regular meeting of council. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we take our customary moment of silence tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Streep.
Thank you. November 13th through November 19th is Trans Awareness Week, and on 11/20, it's Trans Remembrance Day. And I just wanted to do a quick reading for you. This reading is from the Trans Remembrance Project. 26 years ago, trans activists in Boston organized the first Trans Day of Remembrance to mourn those that we've lost and to demand an end to the violence against transgender people, particularly trans women of color. When Rita Hester and Chanel Pickett were both lost to violent anti-trans attacks within a few years of each other, trans people came together to remember, to mourn, and to demand better for those who would come after them. As we remember those lost to violence, we also grieve their stolen futures. Their stories shine through the words of their loved ones who remember their passions for music and art, their love of partners, friends, and pets, their talents for community organizing, for fashion, or ballroom, or journalism, or computer science. As trans people living openly as ourselves, often require immense courage, and that courage inspires others to live more fully and authentically. As one relative of Kelsey Elm, a 25-year-old black trans woman from Missouri who was lost this year, said watching Kelsey grow into her confidence and share it with the world was a blessing. When we lose trans people, Everyone loses so much. This data is for November 1st of 2024 to October 31st of 2025, with some overlap to capture those lost in October 2024 whose loss was not reported in time. While we work hard to gather and analyze the fullest possible data set, it is very likely that this list remains incomplete due to the nature of how these stories are reported and underreported. We can't draw comparisons year over year. Trans identities are often poorly acknowledged in life and erased in death, and we have a long way to go before we have completely accurate picture of the community's loss. During this time period, we had a total death of 58 people. Total violent deaths were 27. Total deaths by suicide, 21. Gun violence appears over and over in our data. Out of 27 total violent deaths, 17 were due to gun violence. 61% of those lost to suicide were trans children ages 15 to 24. The Trevor Project's latest study, released in October 2025, shows that younger trans and gender nonconforming youth aged 13 to 17 are at particular risk of suicidal ideation and poor mental health outcomes. Discrimination and harassment, often targeted at trans women and girls, strongly affects mental health. Trans people who were verbally harassed, denied equal treatment, or physically assaulted were very much more likely to experience suicidal thoughts. On our list, 61% of those lost to suicide were between the ages of 15 and 24. As Daniel DiHonesano, Kamora Wood's mother, said, "Love your child, accept your child for who they are, because life is too short. You just don't know what can happen." Thank you.
Thank you. So as we take this moment of silence, just want to lift up our Trans Day of Remembrance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Bullock?
Here.
Councilmember Evans? Here. President Keppel?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton Steiner?
Here.
Councilmember Streebig?
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held November 3rd, 2025.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item reading and disposal of the minutes of the special meeting of council held November 10th, 2025.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I'd just like to thank Vice President Baker for chairing that meeting and making that happen.
Extremely difficult.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Without objection, we did have some young person. Okay. All right. We'll come back. All right. So we'll come back to that. So let's go ahead and move on with item 1.
Item 1, report from Finance Committee held November 10th, 2025.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the Finance Committee met on November 10th to address 2 items of legislation referred to Council. First, we heard from Development Officer Dan Wyman and Citizens Advisory Committee, or CAC, Co-Chair Claire Foley about the 2025 CAC process and recommendations. The role of the CAC is to help advise the city on the highest and best use of a discrete pool of federal funds that the city receives each year. For 2026, the estimate to be received is $1.75 million in community development block grant funds and $160,000 in emergency solutions grant funds. After 4 public meetings in which the CAC heard proposals and applications regarding the funds, the CAC issued recommendations which matched those of the administration. Notably, the city's public art program received for the first time a funding allocation recommendation of $42,500. After deliberation and discussion, the Finance Committee unanimously moved to recommend adoption of Resolution 2025-66, which would authorize these recommendations to be submitted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Next, the committee addressed Resolution 2025-65, which authorizes updates to the city's lease with one of its tenants at 1450 Bell Avenue, the Lakewood Child Care Center. Due to a conflict of interest, Councilmember Baker recused himself from all discussions and votes on the matter. Having already heard, and I should actually say, at least in abundance of caution, avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, he recused himself. Having already heard from Lakewood Child Care Center on this topic and being familiar with the high quality of services that they provide, I express support for the proposed lease, which establishes a greater sense of stability and longevity for this long-term tenant, which also provides a much-needed service to the Lakewood community, which is high-quality daycare, especially for the very young children. The terms of this revised lease would better enable and empower them to do so, to make long-term plans and renovations. After discussion with Director Byington, the committee voted to amend Resolution 2025-65 for a minor typo correction and then to favorably refer it to council as amended. Councilmember Baker abstained. Move to receive and file that report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President.
Councilman Bullock.
I just want to repeat what I said in committee, which is I want to thank Director Byington for, well, for all of it, but on the second item related to the lease for 1450 Bell, we had had informal conversations over 2 years or something, and I appreciate her follow through on this. And as I said, there's value to the city beyond the monetary rent we receive for this building to maintain and provide for possible expansion of this tenant. And she really followed through on it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that report? Hearing none, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 2, substitute resolution 2025-65, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor to enter into the fourth amended lease agreement with the Lakewood Child Care Center for the lease of the real property located at 1450 Bell Avenue, first floor, also known as the Community Health Center.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Vice President Baker.
Thank you. As Councilman Bullock mentioned, my wife's on the board of the nonprofit Lakewood Child Care Center, so out of abundance of caution, I will abstain from this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. First, I will take votes to abstain. Abstain. And then all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. So I don't forget. All right.
Item 3.
Can we actually, let's pause here, and without objection, I'm going to offer public comment at this time. I believe we have a young person who might want to speak with us and has school tomorrow. So if you'd like to come on up and push the button so it turns green. And Mr. Vargas, if you want to speak now too, if you were interested in doing that, that's, yeah, okay. You can come up together and take your turns. It's either way, whatever is more comfortable. You get up to 5 minutes. You address the chair. That's me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Cesar Vargas. I live on Dale View Drive. Congratulations on the re-elections. I'm here to talk again about how Lakewood is in need of some proper handball courts. Not only for the already 60 players that we have, but also for the many more players that we're going to end up getting here at Harding, and for the Lakewood community also, where they will have another space to be active and moving. Handball is a lifelong game. It's simple to learn and play, and the benefits from building endurance and agility, hand-eye coordination, and the camaraderie is undeniable. Last time I was here, I mentioned my wife, Brianna, and we raised 3 boys in Lakewood. And these are 3 active boys. And they were involved in every sport, basketball, football, baseball. And those weren't cheap, right? That could be pretty expensive. Handball is a whole different deal. It's probably one of the most inexpensive games that we could play. All we need, $2 ball and the space to play. Finding my spot here, sorry. A proper handball court will continue to develop the sport in Lakewood, and it could change the landscape of what an affordable, health-benefiting activity could be in the city of Lakewood. I have the ideas for the spaces. I have reference photos that I would share, anybody who would like to look at that. I would invite anyone who would like to come to Harding. We have Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 7 a.m. to 7:45, handball club. We also play during lunch. If anybody want to come in, I'll spring for school lunch for anybody who wants to see what these kids are doing at that school. I witness the benefit every day, and they show up, and a lot of parents tell me this kid doesn't wake up for anything, but they'll show up for handball. So, yeah, I think we could benefit from, again, a proper space to continue to grow that sport in Lakewood. Thank you. And this is one of our players, Charlie. He's so good at it.
Awesome. Charlie, come on up.
Hello. Let me get my script up. Can I move this down a little bit? All right. Hello, my name is Charlie Amon, and I live on Lakeland Avenue. I'm here to support my art teacher and handball club organizer, Mr. Vargas. I completely agree with the point that we need more handball courts in the city of Lakewood. If you're not familiar with the sport, handball is a very cooperative and multi-generational activity. I've made so many friends through the handball club through my school. I'm currently an 8th grader at Harding Middle School and a member of the handball club. The game is so fun and active, but the one issue that when I go to 9th grade at Lakewood High School, there aren't any handball courts for my friends that I can play outside of school. I think it would be a great idea to add some courts around Lakewood for everyone to play. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to speak. We appreciate it. Did anyone else want to speak on this topic? Let's hear. No? Other public comment, folks, I won't make you stay to the end either if you wanted to take advantage of this time. Yep. Okay. All right, Councilman Bullock.
I just want to acknowledge the great points, and I did receive maybe others did too, a letter from the National Handball Association president saying he wanted to support this request for court space in Lakewood. So good on Mr. Vargas. I think my dad played years ago, so I'll have to get out and give it a go as well. And I'd be interested to understand, the cost and the space and the dimension. I'm looking it up a little bit, and I don't know if the administration has considered where and how such a facility might fit in an outdoor space. Is that the thrust of what we're talking about?
Yeah, we're looking for outdoor space. We'll take an indoor space as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things we had, go ahead, Chief Story, did you want to? Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. I don't know, generally, is the Harding handball courts, they're still going?
Yeah, we have 2 courts in our gym and then a court in the back of like an auxiliary parking lot that they have at Harding.
Do they let you use it during the summertime?
No, because it's always booked with some other activity, and it's sometimes hard to get around those things. Yeah, that for some reason Harding is the place for everyone to go and practice.
Yeah, we're always short on gym space here in Lakewood. I hear that a lot. One of the things we had talked about too is as we continue the work on Madison Park master plan, and there's the potential with the pool house redevelopment, and Mr. Vargas had sent me some diagrams, which I'll forward on to planning also to see if it seems from my non-professional viewpoint that it's a relatively low-cost addition to something like that. So we'll talk more about that because it does seem like it's a relatively small cost, and we have a lot of youth interested. So great. Thank you so much for being here and for speaking out. Yep. And it's not rude at all if you want to go home now. So. All right, so we'll head back up to the next item.
Item 3, Resolution 2025-66, a resolution to take effect immediately, authorizing and directing the mayor to submit the fiscal year 2026 one-year action plan of the 5-year consolidated plan, which includes dollar allocations and activities to be funded with federal CDBG and ESG resources, any other entitlement funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, all amendments thereto, and all understandings and assurances contained therein, and incorporates the city's application to HUD for fiscal year 26 CDBG and ESG funds.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 4, report from Health and Human Services Committee held November 10, 2025.
Councilmember Marks.
Thank you, Council President. Dear colleagues, the Health and Human Services Committee met on Monday, November 10th in the auditorium. On the agenda was Resolution 2025-54, which proposes to authorize a contract with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for services in 2026 and 2027. The proposed contract includes a 12% increase for each year of the 2-year contract. 2 directors and general counsel from the Cuyahoga County Board of Health were present to provide information and answer questions about the public health services provided to Lakewood as part of our existing agreement. Director of External Affairs Suzanne Hirsch delivered an overview of the services offered by CCBH, which included lead abatement, clinical services, food inspection, watershed protection, and animal bite and infectious disease reporting. One item of note was a new mobile unit that will be available to communicate for education and clinical services and will be staffed by a registered nurse. We learned that there are these full-time CCBH employees assigned to Lakewood, a highly experienced generalist known as a senior sanitarian and watershed protection specialist and a food safety specialist. Director Hirsch shared CCBH's new communication-focused initiatives that will be supported by the increase in cost. The Speakers Bureau will become available for presentations and demonstrations. A large media purchase will help communicate directly to residents, and an investment in IT and external affairs will communicate important health services and outcomes to city residents. Council members expressed appreciation for CCBH's work and made suggestions for improving partnership between the city and CCBH. Resolution 2025-54 was favorably referred back to Council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, Resolution 2025-54, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor to enter into a 2-year agreement commencing January 1st, 2026 with the District Advisory Council of Cuyahoga County, Ohio General Health District for the provision of public health services within the city of Lakewood, and now in an amount not to exceed $456,440 for calendar year 2026 and $511,458 for calendar year 2027.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, report from Housing Planning and Development Committee held November 10th, 2025.
Vice President Baker.
Dear colleagues, the Housing Planning and Development Committee met on November 10th, 2025 to hear a presentation from Lakewood Alive. I regularly attend the board meetings of Lakewood Alive as a council-appointed ex officio member, and I report back to council on those meetings, but the executive director, Ian Andrews, and myself thought that council was due for an update on the breadth and impact of the work the organization undertakes. Director Andrews shared that the core work of Lakewood Alive is based upon 3 pillars: housing outreach, small business support, and quality of life events. His presentation focused on the first 2 pillars, as the community is familiar with the fun events that Lakewood Alive coordinates each year. One of the major takeaways from the evening is that there's a lot of need amongst the senior population in Lakewood. Director Andrews shared that over the past few years, the percentage of seniors in their housing support program rose from 40% to 70% of program participants. He identified the top needs that they see for the senior population, from financial assistance to keeping their homes up to code, to help with retrofitting their homes so they can age in place, to an increase in hoarding, and to a lack of clean and safe sleep surfaces. Council members agreed that the city and the community need to work together with Lakewood Alive to ensure that our seniors have the support they need. Another major takeaway from the evening is that Lakewood Alive was able to generate a significant amount of impact with a limited pool of financial resources due to their deep relationships in the community and their close collaboration with the city. I believe Council was in agreement that we must continue to invest in our partnership with Lakewood Alive, as they provide an important web of social infrastructure in our community that the city simply cannot deliver on our own. I'd like to thank Director Andrews and Joe Higgins, Operations Manager, Lakewood Alive, for joining us, and I look forward to continuing to support Lakewood Alive in my role as ex officio board member. I'll make a motion to receive and file that communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, report from Committee of the Whole held today, November 17th, 2025.
Your colleagues, Committee of the Whole met earlier this evening at 6 o'clock. We were joined by consultants from PMC, including Chris Panicki and Ken Kalanchuk, as well as Weber Murphy Fox, David Thal, for the purpose of discussing the City Hall space solutions that we've been investigating with the working committee. We looked at essentially 3 options, although of course there are more than that, but just for the sake of comparison, we considered option 1, which would be remaining in the existing City Hall space, but with a small addition off of the police department. That option came in at an estimated project cost of about $21.4 million. Option 2, which would put a large addition on the existing City Hall and retain the annex across the street with the renovation. That project came in at an estimated cost of $30.9 million and would come in at 74,872 gross square feet of renovated and new space. And option 3, which would be the purchase of the Warren Road property and complete gut and renovation, as well as the renovation of the existing City Hall building into a Justice Center and the sale of the annex building with an estimated project cost of $39.7 million and $39.7 million with 90,459 gross square feet of renovated and new space. We had a really informative discussion with the consultants regarding questions of what all is included in those numbers, how they reach those numbers, and some of the conversation with the administration too about what type of space is needed looking forward, and what all has been considered. We also had a conversation about projected cash flow in terms of when different amounts would need to be expended for each option, with option 1 being essentially starting in year 2026 and concluding in 2028, and the other 2 options starting in 2026 and concluding in 2029. The second item on the agenda was Resolution 2025-41 to appoint council's appointee to the Tree Advisory and Education Board. After brief conversation in executive session, council exited, and a motion was made and seconded to insert the name Katie Kelleher into that resolution. That motion passed, and that resolution was, as amended, was referred favorably out of committee for adoption. I'll move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, Resolution 2025-41, a resolution to take effect immediately, appointing one person to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for a 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2028.
First, I'll move to substitute as amended in committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And then I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Just reiterate the extreme high quality, the caliber of the candidates that applied, and we want to thank Councilmember Evans for his work in interviewing them, as well as serving as the council liaison to the Tree Education Advisory Board. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to adopt, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, communication from President Keppel regarding council's ex officio appointment to Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board.
Dear colleagues, following this communication, please find a resolution to appoint council's ex officio member of the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board. This resolution contains a blank space where the name of council's appointee will be inserted once that has been decided by council. Councilmember Marks, who has capably served as council's LaSwab liaison, intends to step down from this role at the end of the year, opening an opportunity for a new member of council to serve in this capacity. We thank Councilmember Marks for her work. Unlike other liaison roles that are more clearly aligned with specific committees, the LaSwab liaison is cross-disciplinary in nature. The only prerequisites are an interest in animal welfare and the energy to match that of this very active board. Like other liaison roles, council expects the LaSwab liaison to attend monthly meetings, which occur on the third Wednesday of each month, to provide guidance and support to LaSwab, and to report back regularly to council. I welcome a discussion regarding who among us would be the best fit for this position. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 10, Resolution 2025-70, a resolution to take effect immediately appointing one person as the ex officio non-voting council member to the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board for a 2-year term beginning January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2027.
I'm going to make a motion to defer on this.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and what I would ask is if any council members are interested to please reach out and let me know that you're interested, and we can talk about it. Okay. All right, so a motion's been made to defer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 11, communication from Councilmember Streetwig regarding a communication from Lakewood Youth Council on the topic of public transportation.
Councilmember Streetwig.
Dear colleagues, the Lakewood Youth Council has been discussing the benefits of public transportation and has submitted the following letter for our consideration. Dear Mayor George and members of council, the Lakewood Youth Council strongly supports reintroducing the circulator bus or introducing a new form of transit within the city. Lakewood Youth Council has held many discussions about and is in strong agreement on the need for better transportation within the city. Many residents walk and ride a bike as much as they can, but are limited in travel within the city because they do not have a car, and others simply want to drive less. This is especially true for young residents, many of whom are not yet able to drive or don't have consistent access to a car. Going to and from school, activities, and work would become easier if there was an available alternative to driving. Additionally, an inner-city bus would benefit all residents who can travel the city without a car, especially in colder weather. The following points support the introduction of transit with the city, and I will let you all read through those points there. Thank you for your consideration, and we look forward to working with you regarding this matter. Sincerely, the Lakewood Youth Council.
Thank you. And we do have a public comment on this communication as well. So for council members to that will also be entered as part of the record. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. In discussion, I'll just mention to Councilmember Strubik, and I have discussed this as well as some members of the Youth Council, that Council recently held a committee hearing going over the transit feasibility study. So I think that would be also great for, I know at least one member of the Youth Council was here that night, but other members of the Youth Council to watch that as well and continue those conversations, particularly as Case Advisory Board gets off the ground. Any further discussion? Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Thank you, President Keppel. So this question is more for Director Byington, if I can just ask a follow-up question. So I was trying to find the search through the city's website of the, I was searching for the transit feasibility study, and I wasn't able to find it. So can we make sure that we get that up on the website so that it can be found when it's searched? So I just wanted to follow up. So that was timely that the Youth Council was presenting that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And maybe Councilmember Strebig, if you can send them the link to the video if they wanted to watch it, that would, as fascinating, I'm sure they'll be fascinated to watch a council committee meeting, but.
Of course they will. Yes, we could also send them the study too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, any further discussion on the communication? Always thank the Youth Council and Councilmember Strebig for reporting back to us from them. All right, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 12, report from Councilmember Strebig regarding the October 21st meeting of the Community Recreation and Education Commission.
Councilmember Strebig.
Dear colleagues, on Tuesday, October 21st at 6 p.m., the Community and Recreation Commission met at the Taft Center for Innovation. Leslie Faber reported that the deadline for the winter brochure was approaching during the first week of December, and that spring and summer information for camps was being collected already. Fall football is over, volleyball and soccer are finishing, and basketball registration is happening now. Fall swimming season concluded, pardon me, with a pumpkin float that allowed 40 to 50 children to swim and choose a pumpkin in the pool. New lane lines for the pool have been purchased, and field renovations at Edwards Field were mentioned. A new tap floor and mirrors have been installed at Taft. Fall softball playoffs finished ahead of schedule with the good weather that we enjoyed, and meetings for softball and baseball for next spring are being discussed. The department is halfway through the 100th anniversary daily drawing and has received great response. The Western Reserve Historical Society has been in contact with the department to gather information now that they have reached 100 years old. Coordinator Faber reviewed her report on outdoor basketball hoops and explained that it was a first-come, first-serve environment for players and that these courts are not programmed and are locked in the evening. And also, as the addendum to this report was her chart, specifically for the schools, what elementaries and middle school, what the hoop situation is there. And then she also went around to all the public parks in addition and gave us this report, which I thought was very complete, and I was very thankful for her extensive research on this project. But at this time, there aren't any plans, it doesn't sound like, to put any more basketball hoops around. And it seems like if you can get in there before it's dark, that's your best chance of getting to a hoop. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll first move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councilmember Strebig, I don't know if this was discussed, but are the other facilities locked at the same at dark, like the track and other school facilities?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I'd just be curious to know.
Track is locked.
Mm-hmm.
Director Gordon's shaking his head as if to indicate that it is locked.
Is it dusk or 10:30 or I don't know.
Not that it's your job to know that.
Some of them are different, right? Some of them are dusk and some are at a specific time. So you would probably go there to the entrance and look at the information for that facility.
Director Gordon.
Thank you, Council President Keppel. I mean, I am not completely knowledgeable in all this, but it is locked at certain times. I know in the mornings, I don't think it opens up until like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And then at night, I'm not quite sure what time it closes, but it does have an opening and closing time. It is not open 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the same thing with, obviously, our parks have a closing time as well, so.
Correct. Depending on the park, is depending on the closing time.
Vice President Baker.
Yes, and perhaps this is for the administration, maybe Director Story, but I think it's been 2 years maybe since we've had an update on the pool and admissions and revenue and kind of what the plans are. And it sounds like usually this magazine is what sets it in the summer. So before it's baked and printed, I think it perhaps would be nice. I'd be happy to co-sponsor or co-write a letter with the administration just to get it before committee, maybe sometime in January, February. Is the administration amenable to that?
Through the president, yes, absolutely. And we'll endeavor to get everything. I don't know, when does the catalog for the summer go out, though? It says imminent in this. That's what I was just looking at.
Well, the next one would be the winter, spring, and then there'd
Okay.
be the summer one.
So I want to make sure we're on the same page before the summer catalog goes out is what you're.
Yeah, but they start doing that.
Yeah, from this communication, and perhaps Councilperson Strebe can educate us further, but it looks like the winter catalog is about to go out, or the spring catalog? Okay.
They do, Lakewood does winter, spring. I happen to know. So it's winter, spring, and then they'll do summer, summer. So spring, summer is kind of May-ish, but they'll finalize that probably in March. I would say definitely have that meeting before March or April. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. Thank you to Councilwoman Strebe. I think we had a conversation about this very question on the way out the door last time about the city provides some access for outdoor basketball in some of the facilities that we own and maintain and operate. The schools have a they've got a bunch of facilities themselves. This kind of does the first step of putting those together. The next question is, what does the total access picture look like for the average kid, the average parent, who of course, they're just thinking like a normal person, where do I go, and what options are available to me. And I guess I'd like to invite us to potentially have a hearing in City Council when there's time, probably that means after January 1, for not just outdoor basketball, but things like a handball court question. I got feedback recently about the ever popular pickleball sport, where the city got compliments for some of our facilities, but there's a missing link where we could do more to help people reserve. Like, they'll show up to the Lakewood Park court or two and never be able to get in a game because there's no system or coordination to make the facilities that we've done a good job of investing in and creating to give access to players. So a lot of players will just go to Cleveland, like I think it's down Rocky River Drive, there's some place where there's a lot more. So the idea being, with the programming, a little fine tuning on programming, we might be able to enhance the capital investment we've already made. I'm not even got my head in the brain space of futsal. So there's all these like emergent, interesting activities, which are great as long as we have the user group, and apparently there's a growing user group for handball. So I just wonder if maybe we could do a session where certainly outdoor basketball, which has been a long-running focus for a decade at least, but also these other things, from a city council perspective, what are we hearing? What would we be interested in supporting? It may not always require a brand new facility. It may just be ensuring that there's some degree of coordination and scheduling function. I don't have the solution on how that works. And then for sure, at least for basketball, if we could negotiate appropriate access to outdoor school facilities, that more than doubles the opportunity. Schools have a say and a special concern about access to their grounds it works a bit differently than public parks, but it shouldn't be that much different. It shouldn't be a bridge too far, and I think we could all do some good work together. So that's my suggestion, that maybe this communication could get referred to an appropriate committee for some future discussion along those lines, which includes multiple programming, which considers programming for this and other similar sports where we're hearing, at least anecdotally, from people of interest. I suspect that planning and public works has more information that I don't necessarily have, because they're always doing a good job of talking to the Friends of Parks groups. That, it'd be nice to pull all this together is what I'm saying, not very succinctly. Thanks.
Thanks. When we were at the skate park opening, walked past quite a few people waiting for pickleball courts, and so certainly there's demand there as well. What I would suggest is maybe sort of coalesce those thoughts, and we also are just about due to have a joint meeting with the school board before too long as well, so it might be good to maybe work on a communication that pulls those thoughts together for discussion at that meeting. So that would be my suggestion on that. And I'll be reaching out to President Katzenberger about that joint meeting, as well as I think the pools conversation is certainly worth having probably in the beginning of the year once we get through the budget. So. All right, so we have a motion right now and a second to receive and file this communication. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 13, communication from Finance Director Mahoney regarding 2025 year-end and 2026 budget ordinances.
Director Mahoney.
Dear members of council, the following 6 ordinances reflect appropriations, purchasing, and contracting authority necessary to finalize the 2025 budget and to implement the 2026 budget. They support the contents of the 2026 estimate of expense / comprehensive budget document and include 2025 year-end permanent appropriation ordinance, 2025 fourth quarter transfers and advances, 2026 permanent appropriation ordinance, 2026 purchasing and contracting authority ordinance, 2026 capital contracting, 2026 planning and development program contracting authority. Please refer to the attached legislation to the Committee of the Whole for further review for passage before December 31st, 2025. And I'd just like to make a comment that the previous 8 capital contracting authority ordinances were reduced to 1. So happy to do that.
Thank you. We would typically refer these to finance. Were you?
Oh, sure.
Okay. That was
I just copied last year's.
Oh, that's
letter,
sure. I just want to make sure that there wasn't a reason that because we've worked on a tentative schedule. Keeping the trains running on time is, part of my job. Okay, so with that, Councilmember Bullock, would you like the communication as well as the ordinances?
Certainly, thank you.
So I will move to refer the communication to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the communication? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. And then I'd like to move to suspend the rules to read items 14 through 19 together.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And I don't need Okay, all right. So on that motion to suspend the rules, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 14, Ordinance 31, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026. Item 15, Ordinance 32, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the transfer in advance of certain funds. Item 16, Ordinance 33, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately to establish appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Lakewood for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026. Item 17, Ordinance 34, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the Mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts for professional services and to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of repair, maintenance, and operating supplies, services, and equipment as authorized by the 2025 Appropriation Ordinance and the Administrative Code of the City with the lowest and best bidder or bidders or as otherwise provided by law. Item 18, Ordinance 35, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately, authorizing and directing the Mayor, Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City for the contracts listed below, not to exceed specified amounts shown without separate resolution of council. Item 19, Ordinance 36, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the Mayor, the Director of Public Works, the Director of Law, the Director of Finance, the Director of Planning and Development, and/or Purchasing Manager to enter into service contracts in accordance with the Administrative Code of the City of Lakewood for the Department of Planning and Development in accordance with the Administrative Code. Contracts not to exceed the specified amounts shown without separate resolution of council.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 20, communication from Finance Director Mahoney regarding petty cash and operating fund changes.
Director Mahoney.
Dear members of council, I'm requesting an update to codified ordinances 12953 petty cash funds and 12954 operational cash funds to adjust to operational needs. These changes would better reflect the operational needs of the city. Petty cash funds are used to reimburse minor and occasional expenditures, generally under $100. Operational cash funds are used as change funds or drawer startups. The changes include a removal of petty cash funds for the mayor's office, fire department, office on aging, health department, which we no longer have, and the water department. I am requesting an increase to the law enforcement trust petty cash fund to allow for undercover purchases. Changes requested for the operational cash funds include decreased amounts to the police department, increases to vital statistics, the water department, and establishing a fund for refuse. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Director Mahoney, so it would be helpful to you if this is addressed, it would be important to address this prior to going into the upcoming budget year, or?
It's just, it doesn't really affect the budget. It's
Okay.
more just operational.
Okay, I'm just trying to think too in terms of how much we have before finance and trying to get through everything, so.
Should be a quick approval, I would imagine, so. Whatever.
One can hope. All right, so I'm going to move to refer this communication to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 21, Ordinance 29, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1st, 2026, amending Section 12953, Petty Cash Fund, and 12954 Operational Cash Funds of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to better meet current needs for both petty cash and operational cash within the departments of the City of Lakewood.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 22, communication from Law Director Varga regarding master fee schedule.
Assistant Director Swallow.
And members of City Council, the following legislation will amend the Administrative Code and the Business Code of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to move references to all fees within those provisions to the master fee schedule. As you recall, in 2024, legislation was introduced and moved all of the Division of Building and Housing fees into a newly created master fee schedule. The administration is working toward the goal of eventually setting forth all of the city's fees in a master fee schedule for ready access by our employees and the public. Please refer the attached items to the appropriate committee for further discussion and consideration. It will be important to adopt both pieces of legislation simultaneously so as not to create a gap in any collection of fees.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of on the radar for a while to try to clean these things up so we don't have to look in 50 different places of the code to find these. So I appreciate that work. I'm of the mind to refer these to rules and ordinances. Sure. All right. Would you like the communication? All right. So I will move to refer the communication to rules and ordinances. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 23, Resolution 2025-71, a resolution to take effect immediately to establish the master fee schedule by incorporating fees from Part 1, Title 5, Administrative Code, and Part 7, Business Regulation Code of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances, and superseding all prior fees established that are included in this resolution.
Move to refer to rules and ordinances.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 24, Ordinance 30, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately, amending various sections of Part 1, Administrative Code, and Part 7, Business Regulation Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lakewood to move all fees identified within those provisions to the master fee schedule.
Move to refer to rules and ordinances.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 25, communication from Human Resources Director Dillinger regarding salary ordinance.
Dr. Dillinger.
Thank you. Ms. President, through you, I am submitting the attached updated salary ordinance for your approval to be effective as signed and passed in accordance with City Charter. I am recommending the following amendments. Update the pay ranges by the cost of living adjustment, which is 3% for 2026. Eliminate 4 obsolete job titles. Add laboratory technician licenses 1 through 3. Backflow certification and local public agency to Section 4. And add MACP, LACP, PACP certifications at $750 each to match the AFSCME public work contract. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll send this ordinance to finance. I assume that'll be part of your discussion. So I'm going to move to refer the communication to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 26, Ordinance 37, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1st, 2026, to provide for creating positions and rates of pay for full-time and certain part-time annual salaried employees and hourly rate employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement in the several departments, divisions, and offices of the City of Lakewood, including Chief of Fire, Chief of Police, and Civil Service Commissioners, and superseding all prior salary ordinances.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 27, communication from Human Resources Director Dillinger regarding update to various employment benefits of non-union employees.
Dr. Dillinger again.
Thank you. Attaches an ordinance, if adopted, that will update various employment benefits of non-union employees. All updates are in line with our public works and administrative staff labor agreements and improves recruitment and retention efforts. The first change will allow employees to accrue vacation more quickly than the current schedule provides and adds an additional 20 hours of vacation at 20 years of service, 25 years of service, respectively. The second change makes Veterans Day a city holiday. Finally, sick leave conversion to cash is proposed to be modified to require that an employee has a minimum of 10 years of service with the City of Lakewood before being eligible for sick time conversion, and sets a scale for increased conversion of sick time based on the number of years of service employees has at the time of separation from employment. Please refer this legislation to the appropriate committee for further discussion and consideration.
Thank you. I'll move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 28, Ordinance 38, 2025, an ordinance to take effect January 1st, 2026, amending Section 14908, vacation, Section 14910, holidays, and Section 14911, sick leave accumulation of the codified ordinances to allow accrual of vacation for employees at a faster rate, increase the maximum vacation that can be earned, add Veterans Day to the list of paid city holidays, and to increase the conversion of sick time upon separation of employment within the city.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 29, communication from Assistant Planning Director Boss regarding proposed code amendments, pet grooming services.
Director Byington?
Thank you, President Keppel and members of council. In coordination with the Law Department, the enclosed proposed code amendments are provided for consideration by City Council to improve zoning regulations related to pet grooming services. This proposed amendment is a response to our current difficulty in administering reasonable variance requests due to additional regulations unduly imposed upon the specific service when compared to other uses in the same zoning district. The 1996 update to the zoning code, Ordinance 91-95, allowed this use by right in the C3 General District while designating it as a conditional use in the C2 Retail District, with several additional regulations that include a prohibition on locating in any building with a residential use, as well as a unique parking requirement that far exceeds any other comparable retail business without specific justification. Given the mixed-use character of the majority of buildings and the interspersed block layout of C2 and C3 districts along our commercial corridors, there is no real discernible difference between the mixed-use retail residential building in either district. Yet the current zoning regulations prohibit pet grooming in C2 buildings with a residential use while allowing it by right in a similar building across the street in the C3 district. Additionally, given the highly transient drop-off pickup character of these businesses, the current regulations impose an off-street, non-transient parking requirement that far exceeds the standard for any other retail use. The proposed amendments seek to make this service permitted of permitted use in both the C2 and C3 districts while differentiating from boarding services and providing general supplemental regulations to provide for appropriate controls such as noise and odor to avoid nuisance-related issues with adjacent residential uses. It is requested that these proposed amendments be referred to the appropriate committee for discussion prior to adoption by full council. Sincerely, David Boss, Assistant Director.
Thank you. So I'm thinking we'll send this to Housing Planning Development and Planning Commission. So I'm assuming you would like the communication?
Yes.
All right, so I will move to refer to Housing Planning Development and Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 30, Ordinance 39, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately amending or repealing various sections of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to update definitions and regulations related to pet grooming services within the city of Lakewood.
Move to refer to Housing Planning and Development and Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 31, communication from Assistant Planning Director Boss regarding proposed code amendments, bicycle infrastructure.
Director Byington again.
Thank you, President Keppel and members of council. In coordination with the Law Department, the enclosed proposed code amendments are provided for consideration by City Council to better align our bicycle infrastructure definitions with Ohio Revised Code and to update regulations related to the use of mobility devices such as e-bikes and e-scooters on and maintenance responsibilities for municipally designated shared use paths. The amendments include Chapter 301 definitions, new definitions added for bikeway and shared use path, pulled from the Ohio Revised Code, updated definition for motorized bicycle, taken from the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 373, bicycles and motorcycles, Chapter 373, Section 108, removed speed limit for e-scooters for consistency with adjacent municipalities. Section 373.10, increased age for riding unsupervised in the roadway. Section 373.101, a new section, riding on bikeways and shared use paths, to apply regulations to new infrastructure definitions and differentiate between minors and adults. Section 373.14, reinforce prohibition of motorized bicycles on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Section 903.10, duty to repair and maintain sidewalks. Differentiate between sidewalks and municipally designated shared use bike paths and bikeways. Designate city as responsible for repair and maintenance of municipally designated shared use paths. It is requested that these proposed amendments be referred to the appropriate committee for discussion prior to adoption by a full City Council. Sincerely, David Boss, Assistant Director.
Thank you. So, sorry, Vice President Baker and I were just discussing, well, obviously send this to, I'm going to make a motion to send this to Housing, Ordinance to Housing Planning and Development, but also wondering about Planning Commission or case. So, go ahead. Councilwoman Evans, did you have something to? No. So, Chief Story, do you know if where the mayor is with her appointments to case? Are we close to those? Do you know?
Madam President, yes, I believe we are, but I don't want to speak for her as to the finality of it.
Okay. Well, we're a little ways away from this shared use path actually being constructed, so we have a little time. So let's do, I'm going to make a motion to refer, we're just on the communication, but just to explain what's happening in the ordinance, so I'll make a motion to refer to Housing Planning and Development and case.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Vice President Baker.
Yeah, it'd be helpful if we have a PDF of the ordinance, and I like that it's kind of one omnibus ordinance. If we get a Word version, it'd be helpful. Thank you.
I can get that to you.
Thank you. All right, so on the motion to refer to HPD in case, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 32, Ordinance 40, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately, amending or repealing various sections of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to update definitions and regulations related to bicycle infrastructure within the city.
Move to refer to HPD in case.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing, oh, do you have a public? That just reminds me, I guess I should be checking if we have public comment on these other ones.
There are.
On in this one? Okay. So while we're on discussion, we can pull those up. So those will, of course, be part of the record. And there were 2 on the communication as well. Do we have anyone signed in to speak on this? Yep, come on up.
Hi, Cassie Organ. I didn't sign in because I was waiting to hear what discussion there may be. I understand that nothing is happening with this today and you're referring it. I just wanted to take a moment to just summarize a little bit of my concern, and I know a couple other people have similar concerns with some of the language, so I think it would be appreciated if some additional consideration be made with some of the language and the definitions that are being proposed here, or how they're tying into other existing definitions. So when I read through this document, one key definition that I noticed wasn't referred to that I had to look up myself was mobility device. So according to the Lakewood Codified Ordinance currently, a mobility device means a small mobility device such as an e-scooter, e-bike, or other similar devices. And the reason that's important is because this also defines bikeway and shared use path in this proposed amendment to the ordinances. Shared use path, I think most of you understand that definition. The one that kind of confused me personally was bikeway, so I'll just read that part aloud. It says, it means any road, street, path, or way that in some manner is specifically designated for bicycle travel, regardless of whether the facility is designed for the exclusive use of bicycles or if it is shared with other modes of transportation. And then later in this agenda item, there's a new proposal for a section on riding on bikeways and shared use paths that states no adult shall operate a mobility device on a bikeway or a shared use path except when necessary to go on or off adjacent properties or to park. So that, to me, when you consider how we're currently defining a mobility device and how we're defining bikeways and shared use paths, the way I read that, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm open to being corrected on how I'm understanding this, but it sounds to me like we're saying no adult e-bike users can use bikeways or shared use paths. So that leads me to feel confused on where, as an e-bike user myself, where I'm allowed to operate my e-bike. Because to me, if it's anything, even if it's shared with other modes of traffic, where am I allowed to ride my e-bike? I'm also concerned because I think we're lumping e-bikes into one broad category when there's 3 different classes of e-bikes. People use e-bikes different ways. There's different features that e-bikes have, some which users can choose to engage or not engage. So I think some consideration needs to be spent on how we're defining some of these things, how we're lumping e-bikes together, because I do understand, shared responsibility and everybody wanting to get around safely. But the way this reads sounds like we're excluding e-bike users from using bike infrastructure. So it seems a little counterintuitive to the purpose of some of these projects. And I also just want to reinforce, that people use e-bikes for a variety of different reasons. Some people, that makes biking accessible to them. So it doesn't mean you have an e-bike, now you're speed racing down the road and causing a bunch of car crashes. Some people can bike because e-bikes now exist. So I just wanted to share that, and hopefully there's a little bit more consideration being put into some of these pieces that makes it make sense for the way people use this infrastructure and get around the city. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Baker?
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. And I think that, you know, this is a good start by the administration. I think we're going to work on it with them and Case and other folks because, you know, this is, if you looked at our active transportation plan, we have one piece of shared use path. Bunts will be the next one, but other streets are called for that. So we should be really thoughtful on how we kind of establish the precedent going forward. And to your point, it's mentioned a little bit in the public comments, but Cleveland Metro Parks, you know, there's level 1, level 2 bikes. So it's not the fact that it's an e-bike, it's the e-bike's capability and how it's used. And so I think we can maybe get in the nitty gritty of that and the nuance as we go through committee and hear comment from Case and Planning Commission potentially. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
Thank you. Good proposal, good initial discussion. Thanks, Cassie, also for your feedback. Just to clarify, is the motion before council to also refer to one of our own committees as well as Case? Okay, good, because I think it's important that city council also have a role. And you know, I'd need to continue educating myself on this. One thing I'm interested in doing is reducing conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists. And that's not always easy, but all the bike facilities that I can think of typically envision utility cyclists, not Tour de France caliber athletic cyclists going full tilt on a conventional bike, and then you add e-bikes, and essentially you've got a motorized vehicle sometimes used by a minor who isn't necessarily thinking of safety, and you've got a slow-moving pedestrian. Maybe there's somebody who just is on a crutch because they just sprained their knee, or they're a kid, or they're a senior citizen. You can see how there's going to be a need to appropriately navigate and manage those things. So, you know, maybe what Councilman Baker just said is the beginning of a partial answer there, but I do think is important. So we're going to have a multi-use path on Munts. The vision is not that that's a 35-mile-an-hour speedway for anybody. It's supposed to be an accessible and safe multi-use path separated from the motor vehicle traffic. But if e-bikes all of a sudden become, and anything goes, all you've done is created a separate motorized vehicle facility. And I don't think that's the goal either, is it? So what we want to do is have safe, I mean, the whole point of this is to get people safely onto their bikes and out walking. And we can get them out there, but we're already encountering, it seems to me that we're at the growing edge now of getting more people, kids, people of all ages out walking and biking to school or the store, and we're noticing more and more vehicle conflicts. And the goal is not to have inattentive motorists hit kids in crosswalks. That's not the goal. It's to stop that and to prevent and to plan and to have appropriate response, but really prevention. And but also, so if we have no ability, unlike if we license bird scooters, we can program a top speed in different zones if it's a vendor. We can't do that when somebody owns a private e-bike or scooter and they just use it on the street. So then all of a sudden, that's a giant new area of enforcement we expect the police to be on top of. It's probably not realistic to ask the police to be everywhere at all times also for this. So we're going to have some degree of balance on this. I don't know the answer, but and Cassie, Ms. Oregon is bringing up a good point. She's already got an investment. She's already using the streets responsibly. She's got a partial e-bike boost on her vehicle where she allowed to operate. So there's got to be successful use, but it can't. But I think things are too new, and drivers are still getting used to this. We've got to plan somehow for successful deployment where pedestrians, cyclists, e-cyclists, and motor vehicles can all safely coexist. I think we're going to have to work really hard on this over the next several years. So that's admire the problem more than a solution, but I take this seriously. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I think everyone here tonight is very concerned about safety. I'll just add to, I think that this is, I've heard from folks too about the increasing use of the e-bikes marketed to children more as toys, and we're seeing those on the sidewalks moving very quickly, and that can cause additional collisions and concerns about them zipping through driveways and hitting, seniors and people with disabilities, and then also the terminology so that we're not penalizing people using assistive motorized devices as well. So there's going to be a lot to discuss, I'm sure, and this is one of those times where, we had fantastic applicants to case with a lot of diverse lived experience, and I think this will help inform this discussion well as the, I'm sure, very thoughtful discussion in housing planning and development as legislators to coalesce all of that feedback and make law that makes sense. All right, so we have the motion to refer to HPD in case. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 33, communication from Law Director Vargo regarding extension of vape shop moratorium.
Assistant Director Swallow.
Thank you. Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, on June 2nd, 2025, Mayor George and Council Vice President Baker introduced legislation to place a moratorium on the permitting of vape shops in the city of Lakewood. Please see a copy of the June 7th communication to City Council attached here too for your convenience. Council thereafter adopted the legislation. The moratorium is set to expire on December 30th, 2025 under the original legislation. The attached resolution would extend the moratorium until the earlier of December 31st, 2026. That should be December 30th. 2, the zoning refresh is in place to address vape shops, or 3, council otherwise rescinds the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Baker, I'm going to defer to you a little bit. Would you like this in HPD, or do we feel like we can just go ahead and extend the moratorium?
Yeah, interesting what my colleagues have to say. I would, if it was referred to HPD, I'd say make a motion to recommend adoption. So unless anyone else here has anything else to say, I think we should consider passage this evening.
That's sort of my thoughts on it. All right, so I will move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 34, Resolution 2025-72, a resolution to take effect immediately extending a moratorium on the issuance or processing of permits for smoke shops in the city of Lakewood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 35, communication from Law Director Varga regarding collective bargaining approval 2026 to 2028.
Assistant Director Swallow.
Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, enclosed, please find a resolution for your review and consideration. If adopted, the resolution will ratify the tentative collective bargaining agreements for 2026 through 2028 between the City of Lakewood and the Fraternal Order of Police Ohio Labor Council Patrol Unit, the Fraternal Order of Police Ohio Labor Council Supervisor Unit, the Lakewood Fraternal Order of Police Dispatch Unit, Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association Corrections Officer Unit, Lakewood Firefighters Association, and Lakewood Paramedic Association, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 108, Public Works Employees, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 108, Administrative Employees, respectively. The tentative agreements are the result of arm's-length negotiations between city administration officials and the respective employee representatives. The administration believes that the agreements reflect an appropriate balance between fair and full compensation for our important workforce and the safeguarding of public funds. The financial terms of the agreements will conform to the 2026 financial budget that is also being introduced at this meeting. To facilitate your review, please refer to the outline of the material changes between the agreements currently in force and the tentative 2026 through 2028 agreements, which outline has previously been provided to you. The law department and relevant negotiating personnel will be available during council or committee meetings to address your questions. These agreements are the final agreements for all 8 collective bargaining units.
Thank you. I'll just say I'm going to make a motion in a minute to refer the resolution to committee of the whole, but we are fairly full on Monday evenings for the foreseeable future with finance committee meetings and budget. So the council clerk's office and I were discussing additional dates, so you'll be receiving information about that to try to hold another date so we can get into this topic as well. But first,
my basketball coaching timeline.
Yeah, well, we work around my class schedule and everything else. But 'tis the season to cram things into the end of the year. So, and I do appreciate the administration working to coalesce these into one item. So I'll first move to refer the communication to committee of the whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
And Madam President,
Councilman Bullock.
two points. One is, I mean, we could fold it into finance and just work it through our agenda there, since this is fundamentally not just a major budget document, but a 3-year budget document. The second point is I hope and expect we'll be able to potentially call executive session to consider a briefing. I'm sure the administration has been working for months on doing, on reaching this proposal, this proposed recommended series of agreements, City Council starting today. And so there's a lot of important things to consider. Some of those are material terms of the contracts and how the workplace conditions and so on and so forth, but a lot of it's going to be budget implications. So these are very, very large matters. I really do wish we had a schedule where we're understanding earlier in the calendar the financial strategy and goals or non-financial strategy and goals of the negotiating by the administration with the bargaining units. I guess we'll have a chance to cover that now. But it's difficult to consider changes or amendments at this point. So if council did have different priorities or wanted to ensure that certain things were included in the city's negotiating strategy, I don't know that we have that opportunity right now. So our task is going to be to understand what the current proposal is primarily, and that's a job of work unto itself. So whether it's on the committee of the whole or finance, I personally think we're going to need to do this promptly at the beginning, towards the beginning of the budget hearings, because so much of what this information has is going to shape the overall revenue picture for everything else. Sorry for the long comment.
Yep, I tend to agree, and some of the dates we're looking at are pretty soon. But we already have the tentative schedule for Finance Committee for the budget hearings is already fairly tight and goes into pretty late into the evening. So trying to be respectful of people's time, and so that's where we are right now. There's just only so much time on Monday nights. So any further discussion? No? Okay. On the motion to refer the communication to committee of the whole, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 36, Resolution 2025-73, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor of the city of Lakewood to enter into agreements with the 8 unions representing more than 450 city employees for a 3-year period commencing January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2028, and ratifying those agreements.
Move to refer to committee of the whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. All right, we are at public comment. The 2 folks we had signed in to speak already spoke. Anyone else? Public comment? No? Okay. All right, then announcements from council members. Councilmember Stevig.
Thank you. Thank you all for letting me talk about Trans Day of Remembrance this Thursday. But I also wanted to remind everyone that on Wednesday, the 19th, guys, this is your day, International Men's Day, this Wednesday. So have a great time celebrating all the men in your life. No, International Men's Day.
Isn't that every day?
International Men's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's. I know. It's well, just hey, we're being fair up here. We're inclusive. All right. That's here in Lakewood. Yeah, we can committee of the whole. Yeah, that's a perfect day for it. Okay. Anyway, other announcements from council members. Announcements from the administration. Chad's not here, but I know the Human Services, the mayor's office, they started the SNAP support today with the gift cards. So folks, anyone who may be watching this who needs support, please reach out to Cove Community Center. There's a number of programs with that. Yeah, Vice President Baker.
I will continue to say it until people stop driving crazy around I-90, but there is construction, and you will be delayed, and that's okay. Just drive slow, so everyone gets there safely. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Bull.
Two quick things. First, I want to compliment Director Dillinger for the lot of hard work that goes into the open enrollment of health and other employee benefits package. That's well done. We're able to see that on council, and that really serves all of City Hall. In reviewing that, I find myself feeling grateful that we're able to provide that to employees, because in an uncertain world, that really matters to people. And so thank you for making it a thorough and I think continuous process that's easy. The other point is the chief and I had a chance to dialogue a little bit prior to the meeting, but Chief, would you be willing to share with the public what we're doing to provide special attention, enforcement, and response when it comes to some of these distracted drivers hitting kids at school dismissal around Garfield Middle School and elsewhere?
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. Yes, so obviously last Friday, I believe it was, we had a kid that was struck on the bike. He's okay. Everything's fine. But I think Council Vice President Baker summed it up fairly well. Slow down. Obviously, we are extremely compact and dense in population, and kids walking to school. We have stepped up patrols, speed enforcement during school hours, bringing in extra cars actually on a volunteer basis, come in and run some radar during those hours. It's obviously with I-90 being backed up, there's more traffic around McKinley. I'm sure I've seen the emails. So yes, patrols are stepped up. There is a strict policy in place that no officers will be in the station. They'll be on the road between 2:30 and 3:30 and 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. Sorry, 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, and 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, the peak school hours of kids walking to and from school.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief, and your team. All right, any further announcements? Going once? All right, with no further business before council, we are adjourned.
We'll see you all next Monday. We'll see you next Monday.